In this short video, I'm going to talk about why I never called myself a dissident, why I never will call myself a dissident, and why I will never accept the title dissident. I'm also going to make an argument that you should not consider yourself a dissident as well. The reason I am addressing the subject is because many have noticed a sudden uptick in the use of both dissident and dissident right in the white positive sphere. Some claim they've noticed the uptick since the beginning of the year, and some claim that they have noticed it since the beginning of the destruction of the West by way of these militarized anti-white hit squads. Either way, as a consequence of the uptick, it should be addressed. The other day on my Going Free show, I spoke briefly to the subject, and a member of our community, Spencer I, respectfully pushed back against my position. So I offered to keep the conversation going and decided to make this video after a bit of research once the show was over. The first thing that I will dismiss is the term dissident right. Those of us who are going free are not inside of the anti-white narrative. The false dichotomy of left versus right only exists inside the anti-white narrative. It does not exist in our story where we hold the pen and we decide who and what we are. If you can't see the importance of that, I will tell you right now. When you place yourself on their linear scale, you communicate a host of ideas and behaviors, and speech and activities that probably do not represent you, especially anything and everything violent. You communicate all of that to the vagues, our brothers and sisters. This will only serve to complicate your efforts to help them go free, because you will have to overcome all of their, perhaps, misconceptions about what a person on the, quote, dissident right actually believes. Because let me tell you, the anti-whites are going to be telling them through all of their media, news, and entertainment that individuals on the dissident right are monsters. You will also have to overcome other positions that you may or may not, and probably do not hold, such as oppressive forms of economy and governance, and a great many other notions that will only complicate and most likely make it impossible for you to help most of our brothers and sisters go free. Next, a dissident is defined as a person who opposes official policy, especially that of an authoritarian state, and it means in opposition to official policy. I am not a person who opposes. I am not a person who is in opposition. I am not in the anti-white narrative. I am not a third-rate, powerless character who stands in feckless opposition to their power and domination in their anti-white narrative. I am, just as you should be, the hero in our story. I am an advocate for white well-being. I am a well-being activist. I am white positive, and we are in the white positive sphere. I serve the glorious, heroic, noble, and moral service that is our work for white well-being. Everyone else in the world are either neutral or in opposition to our virtuous and heroic work. Does that make sense? I know that climbing out of the anti-white narrative and into the pages of our own story, into the pages of Prometheus Rising and the blank pages over which we wield the pen, I know that can be difficult. I know that it is a paradigm shift of epic proportions because you have lived your entire life inside of the anti-white narrative, believing it to be the real world. But you have to pull yourself out of the anti-white narrative if we are going to recapture our destiny. The next important point, and of course this is critical, is an examination of how the word dissident is received by the vagues, our brothers and sisters, because they are the ones that we need to help go free. Over the course of their lives, their primary source of information for the word dissident has been the news and, to a lesser extent, the entertainment media, where they are reporting on violence around the world. As a consequence, when they hear the word dissident, They see Molotov cocktails and societal unrest and paramilitary and militarized police and blown up buildings and cars on fire. Is this the imagery and the attendant emotions relative to such imagery that you want to put into the heads of our brothers and sisters when identifying yourself or identifying our community? I decided to jump onto 3 different search engines and see what sort of imagery was provided when I typed the word dissidents. Of course, I had to blur the screen because I do not own the images, but you can do this for yourself. Right now I'm using Google. I've typed in dissidents, and you can see things like a angry fist, pictures of previous terrorists, pictures of leaders in other countries, dissident leaders, violent dissident leaders, a couple of yahoos, societal unrest, a bunch of placards, streets shut down, again, photographs of violent people from the past, more mobs in the streets, civil distress, people being arrested. Here you have a coffin being put into or pulled out of a grave, I guess to see the murdered people. Here's some militarized police, as you can see, people meeting in committees, a tear coming out of an eye. Here you have perfectly a paramilitary group there. That is going to be the specific type of thing that come to the mind of the vagues when they hear that. Here you have militarized police dragging someone away from, I guess, a more militarized police over here, and move along. We'll see. Here you have some more of these violent leaders, more paramilitary groups, businesses shut down. Here you have a whole building, I don't know, entire street corner blown up. Now, violence in the streets, people screaming at the law enforcement, crowds pressed face to face, shoulder to shoulder together, fists raised in the air, violence. This is not the sort of more military promises to put down the dissidents violently, more militarized images of militarized police, more images of violent dissidents from the past. And here you can see even more soldiers, more violence, people are they grabbed by the hair there? All right, now we're on Yahoo, and this is dissidents on Yahoo. You can do the same thing, search engine, and immediately paramilitary group, all in ski masks, more paramilitary out in the jungle, militarized police ruthlessly dragging away a dissident. Here you have more cities shut down, people being carried because violent people being carried off to prison because they're resisting so violently. Here you have the t-shirt that says dissidents with the founding fathers on it, who used to be considered patriots until the anti-whites began calling them terrorists. Now you have t-shirts calling them dissidents. You have more violence in the street, more societal shutdown, more police, more military, the exact kind of danger and threat and fear that you don't want to engender. Here's more paramilitary, the kind of things you do not want to put into the minds of people you were trying to bring over to go free. More paramilitary groups, a giant explosion in the middle of a street somewhere, fire curling high into the night sky, vehicles left and spray painted in the middle of the street. Let's try DuckDuckGo, dissidents. And we see the same thing. More paramilitary, more violence, more police, militarized police ruthlessly putting down those who resist. A whole street, looks like the whole street has been blown up or is in wreckage there. You can see more wreckage, more violent people in the street. All of this associated with the word dissident. There's the guy with a mask and a rifle as a dissident white man they have in that image as well. Are you being set up? Are you being told to or encouraged to use the word dissident? And in the future, there'll be ramifications for this. There'll be repercussions. More paramilitary in the street. People carrying flowers for a grave. Somebody murdered, I'm sure, by the police. More paramilitary. More angry, screaming faces. This is what comes to the mind of people. More funerals. This is not what you want to communicate to our brothers and sisters. Another thought I'm having at the moment is how easy it will be to pass laws to censor and restrict and arrest and jail those who name themselves dissidents, when the average person is going to see these sorts of things in their minds relative to the title dissident. I'll also say this, that I won't be surprised in a year or two, especially if this is not organic, if it is being inorganically pushed into our community. I won't be surprised in a year or two if suddenly the words dissident and or dissident right is added to the terror watch list. And then police and law enforcement, Homeland Security, etc., whatever it might be for your country, will be able to just simply look back through your social media and determine if your name belongs on that list. Actually, you know what? There's one more thing. I'm going to have a quick look. I'm going to jump back on over to those 3 search engines, and we're going to search another term and see what comes up. Okay, let's look at dissenter. This is Google. Of course, it's all blurred. You can look it up for yourself. And look here, there isn't a single violent image that I'm seeing so far. No blown up cars, no buildings in rubble, no police putting down these paramilitary or screaming, bloodthirsty mobs in the streets. None of that. I don't see any of it here on Google. We'll have to check the other 2 to see as well. Here is Yahoo search engine for dissenter. And again, I'm not seeing the fanatical violence, the bombs, the bloodshed, the anarchy, the pulling coffins out of the ground or putting their coffins in the ground, the funerals. Let's try DuckDuckGo, dissenter, and see. Yes, again, none of the violence. So if you want to be a D word, you really feel like you want to be a D word, then I can't see what your argument would be against using dissenter rather than dissident.